1920s, they boarded ships bound for Jamaica to destroy Maroons settlements. Interesting, very interesting. In the meantime, a limited number of black runaway slaves from various Spanish and British settlements in Central America found their way into mosquito-controlled areas. Here, they either become absorbed into the culture, see you're mixing, or were shielded and protected from their former masters. On a number of occasions, the mosquito also refused to answer the British call to serve as bounty hunters. In retrospect, the social institution of slavery proved crucial to the development of the mosquito people and their identity. Not being purely black, the mosquito conceived of themselves as free from the legacy of African slavery. See, they still point to differences. Not being completely Indian, they further saw themselves as beyond the scope of being captured as slaves for the British market. Yet, at the same time, being both Indian and black also made the mosquito somewhat ambivalent in their loyalties to Europeans. They offered the Europeans their services and talents only when they felt inconvenient and necessary. Consequently, the unique Afro-Indian population came to occupy a fragile space in between multiple colonial identities. Interesting. Now let's go read page 35. Not wrong yet, 35, because you're going to understand. So, not what we just read, we understood that this mixing of the mosquito people, it was because some runaway slaves went into this unconquered Native Indians nations. You see what I'm saying? But if you take a look at what happened in, if not wrong, Guatemala, you'll see that there was a reason behind the mixing as well. Let's check this out. So page 35 now, in the same book, African Slavery in the Latin American and Caribbean. Regardless of whether blacks comprised a significant or small elements of certain regional populations in the colony, the lower amount of slave imports to Guatemala definitely affected key personal relationships, such as marriage. When compared with slaves in colonies like Mexico, black slaves in early 17th century, Guatemala tended to marry outside of their race and status with far greater frequency. It seems that small number of African women reaching Guatemala compelled male slaves to seek other wives, many to Indian brides, particularly those classified by the colonial government as tribute payers, thereby representing one of the lowest and most accessible categories of Native women. And if we jump down a little bit here, evidence from Mexico City, by contrast, show that from 1595 to 1695, most slaves married other slaves. Given the large number of male and female slaves coming into the cities, there were greater possibilities for slave intermarriage to occur than in Guatemala. And if you jump down a little bit, it would not be until the late 17th century that black Guatemalan slaves would begin marrying other black in significant numbers, as might be expected. These marriages were conducted largely by slave men who towards the 18th century, so that's like a century later, began marrying free mulatto and black women, both of whom were considered to be of higher status than the social inferior native tributary. So it's like today, you know what I mean? It's like today, when our brothers, they marry white women and all that, is the same thing. It's because of status in society. You know what I'm saying? That's crazy. Yeah, and by the way, I'm not with a Korean yet, so, you know what I'm saying? Israelite men better be with an Israelite woman, which is a Negro woman, and a Negro man, if you want it like that, All right, I'm not with the nonsense. I'm not with BS, Black love. All right, now we reach page 36. Check this out. Women realize that black actually enjoy a slightly higher status in the social hierarchy, Securing a marriage to a black, even a slave, ensure that their children will benefit from being of mixed race ancestry, an Indian mulatto or Zombo. Meanwhile, for slaves, marrying native women not only guaranteed liberty for their offspring, but also ensured them partial access to the world of the free. So you see what I mean? Even back then, our brothers knew that it was better to not be with a black woman. I mean, in their eyes, you know what I'm saying? Because even nowadays, our black sisters are still, subjugated by the society. You see what I'm saying? And black men are partakers in this nonsense. You know what I mean? When Most High said that we should stay together, we should marry each other, you know what I'm saying? But that was that little touch on the mixing. I hope I made myself a bit clear, If you do not understand a bit, you can rewind and all that, you know what I'm saying? So let's keep it going. So, let's deal with the Bible now quickly. So since people want to use the slavery of the Indians to say that they were Israelite too, we're going to deal with that. Because the prophecies of the Most High shall come to pass, right? So we know that the Israelites were cursed. You know what I'm saying? Because they did not respect the law, statute, and commandment on the Most High, right? Okay, so we're going to read Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 45 and 46. Let's read. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, so till you be destroyed, because thy hearkenest not unto the voice of the Most High Elohim, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. 46. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for wonder, and upon thy seed forever. So these curses, they're supposed to be on the Israelites for sign and for wonder. So you'll be like, hang on, this curses, but that makes me Israelite. You know what I'm saying? This is not a little thing, And he says, the Most High said, forever. So we're going to read now, still in Deuteronomy 28, We're going to read now, Deuteronomy 28, verse 64, So Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 64, And Yahuwah shall scatter thee among all people. So the Israelite will be scattered among all people, from one end of the earth even unto the other. That sounds like transatlantic slave trade and sub-Saharan slave trade as well. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy father have known, even wood and stone. So the gods going to be of wood. That sounds like so-called Jesus Christ, Christianity, and stone, the cube of Mecca. That's what it sounds like to me. And only black people, tends to have these curses on them, believing in the false the false images of the Mashiach, of Christianity in this false cube that are up there in Arabia with the Edomites. But let me go to the Apocrypha quickly to back this up as well. Apocrypha. So I'm going to go to Baruch chapter 4, verse 6, and also the Apocrypha, if you could check it out, or if you want to look it up, it was in the KJV 1611, and I'm reading actually from the KJV, so don't be scared if you do not know anything about it, just go look it up, right? So Baruch chapter 4, verse 6 and 7. Ye were sold to the nations, not for your destruction, but because ye moved Elohim to wrath. Ye were delivered unto the enemies, for ye provoked him that made you by sacrificing to devils and not to Elohim. So, sounds a bit like this. 64. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 64. And Yahweh shall scatter thee among all people. So the Israelites, was scattered. Or should I say, all nations, right? So we know now. Now let's read, and from one end to another, it's not no jokes. We know that only black people were scattered everywhere during their slave trades. Let's read now Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68. And Yahuwah shall bring thee into Egypt again. We know that Egypt is significant for slavery. If you read Exodus chapter 21, I think if I'm not wrong, it's significant. It's not really Egypt like that. Again, with ships. By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And there you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, so slave men and slave women. Check this out. And no man shall buy you. So, as we know that the curses of Deuteronomy 28 is for all Israelites, when the Moses said no man shall buy you, he said no one's going to help you. But what you're going to see with the Indian slavery, they received help. But let's see.
Why were most slaves in the New World Africans, especially considering West Africa is thousands of miles away from the Americas and Europe? Remember that the colonies were established to make money for royal families and wealthy colonists, and a small class of wealthy colonists who owned large plantations looked to increase their margins through not paying for the labor that generated their cash crops. So it wasn't that slavery was needed to develop the colonies, but rather that it was decided that this was the quickest way to enrich the people invested in getting rich. First, early attempts in the Americas to enslave Native Americans proved difficult because they had familiarity with the terrain of their own nations and land. As a result, the potential for escape or revolt was high. Second, West Africa was often the source of forced and kidnapped laborers because of its proximity to seaports, which made contact between these three locations more possible. Also, laborers from West African countries were more familiar with the agricultural methods needed for mass cultivation of these kinds of crops in the New World.
All right, so we go into this book, Black Slave and Indian Masters, page 21, and let's see what it says. No longer desired as slaves by colonial planters, Indians were instead often pressed into service as slave catchers. Policing both the territorial divide between the colonies and Indian country, and the even more rigid distinction of race and status that defined colonial slave societies, hoping to preclude any concerted act of resistance or rebellion among Africans and Indians. Carolina and Louisiana lawmakers routinely demanded that their Indian allies catch and surrender runaway African slaves, often including this requirement into their treaties in diplomatic agreement with southern native people. We're going to jump down a little bit and read this one. Though Indians generally had a little choice but to follow French and British authorities, because remember, Mississippi, I think, and Louisiana, was French at first. Just in touching history. Authorities demand that they capture and return fugitive slaves, that they were never simply helpless pawns in a colonial game of dividing and conquering subjugated people. To the contrary, many Southern Indians routinely discerned opportunities to pursue their own interests while making good on the commitments to their colonial allies. You see what I mean? Yeah, that's the reason why they ended the slavery, because they believed that Indians could be white in some way, shape, or form. And if you look at the Native Americans or the Latinos nowadays, they're very pale people. You know what I'm saying? They're pale-skinned people because of this. But you're going to see more. You're going to see more. Let's go back to African slavery in Latin America, and in the Caribbean. Page 18. Let's read up what it says. Initially, it appears as a few thousand Iberians, which is like European, like Spain, I think France, and Netherlands, and all that, if I'm not wrong. Iberian conquistadors who turned towards Indian slavery as a major form of labor in America, already using the enslaved labor of Africans, Muslims, Europe, and the Atlantic Iceland. The first Spaniards and Portuguese immediately went about enslaving all American Indians that they could find and keep. But for a series of political, cultural, and religious reasons, the government of both Spain and Portugal decided against permanently enslaving the American Indians. So I thought the Most High said, "No man shall buy you." Both governments had just finished with unsufferments and other form of semi-free labor arrangement, and were committed to the principle free wage labor. Let's go down a little bit. Not all Indians were treated as free persons, of course. In certain fringes areas of Spanish kingdoms, natives were sometimes enslaved. In modern day New Mexico, for instance, which remained in concurrent region for much of the colonial period, Spaniards enslaved Indians into the 18th century, well after the law had formally eliminated native slavery. So they had a law for it. You see what I mean? They had a law for it, but there was no laws at this time for so-called African slaves, or should I say the Israelites, because the Most High said, "No man shall buy you." Anyway, a number of these slaves were the prisoners of Spanish expeditionary and military forces. Others were purchased directly from Indians who had taken prisoner in intertribal conflict. Frontier slavery in this context was justified as a means of civilizing these otherwise lost Indians, but rarely did their captivity seamlessly and intimately integrate them into Hispanic lives. Although important to the domestic sphere, native slaves did not comprise a primary workforce even in this frontier economy. And in New Mexico, at least, native slavery was not seen as a permanent condition. By 18th century, their captivity resembled indentured servitude, since slaves retained their status for just 10 years. Native slavery probably persisted as long as it did along the Spanish frontier because of the weakness of governing institutions in the kingdom outer areas, and because constant warfare produced a steady source of captives closer to the core of the kingdom. There were more internal stabilities, and the laws of Spain were more strongly felt. Consequently, in this area, Indian slaves had largely disappeared by the late 18th centuries. So that's actually the start of the slave trade, like when it increases. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Jump down right here. Also, the weakness of the political system of the Tupi-Guarani Indian groups that conquered on the Brazilian coastline, and the inexperience of these Indians with systematic peasant labor made them less easy to exploit through non-coercive labor arrangements. So, you see what I mean? Yeah? They had to end this slavery because, once again, these people were not the people of the Bible. The Most High made it possible for the real Israelite in Africa to be slaved over these people. You see what I mean? Yeah? And you're going to read more. You're going to receive more. Don't worry about it. So we'll keep explaining the slavery of the natives. So that's a document, made by a Hispanic man himself through his own research. Natives were kept as slaves too. And we're going to explain and see that the slavery of the Indians were way different than the African slavery, or should I say the Israelite slavery. Remember the Most High said, "No man shall buy you." And you're going to see the difference. Others followed in the admiral's lead, like the English, French, Dutch, and Portuguese, all become important participants in the Indian slave trade. Spain, however, by virtue of the large and densely populated colonies it ruled, became the dominant slaving power.